They whispered about me in drawing rooms across Virginia. The crippled Whitmore girl. Damaged goods. Unmarriageable. 12 proposals. 12 rejections, each one more devastating than the last. My name is Elena Whitmore, and this is the story of how my father's most desperate, most scandalous decision became the greatest love story I would ever know. Picture Virginia in 1856, rolling tobacco fields stretching toward the Blue Ridge Mountains, grand plantation houses with white columns reaching toward the sky, a world built on strict social rules about who was valuable and who was not. I was born into privilege, the Whitmore estate, 5,000 acres of prime Virginia land. My father, Colonel Richard Whitmore, raised me alone after my mother died from childbed fever just 3 days after bringing me into this world. He gave me an unusual education for a Southern girl, Greek and Latin, philosophy and mathematics. He taught me to think, to reason, to calculate estate finances. He was preparing me to be the perfect wife for some wealthy, intelligent man. Then came the day that changed everything. I was 8 years old, riding a horse far too spirited for my limited skills. I'd begged my father to let me ride him. He'd indulged me, the way he always did. The horse spooked at a snake coiled near the path. He reared. I fell. I can still remember the sound, not the horse's frightened whinny, but the crack as my spine hit that fallen log. The doctors came from Richmond and Philadelphia. They examined me with grave faces and delivered their verdict with clinical detachment. Permanent damage. Your daughter will never walk normally again. My father commissioned the finest wheelchair money could buy. Mahogany frame, leather seats, wheels that glided smoothly across our polished floors. He modified our home, ramps where there had been steps, wider doorways, a bedroom moved to the ground floor. But he couldn't modify Virginia society. By 14, while other girls attended dances and picnics, I was home with my books. By 16, while my peers became engaged, I watched life happen through windows. By 18, my father began his desperate campaign to find me a husband. You need protection, he told me one evening in his study. Someone to manage the estate when I'm gone, someone to ensure you're secure. I can manage the estate. You've taught me everything about business and farming. His expression was pained. Elena, you know that's not how the world works. A woman alone, especially. He gestured at my wheelchair, unable to finish the sentence. The first proposal came from Thomas Aldrich, a tobacco planter from Lynchburg. I watched his eyes travel from my face to the wheelchair to the floor, unable to meet my gaze. My father praised my education, my skills with household accounts, my fluency in French. "Colonel Whitmore," Thomas interrupted, "might I speak with you privately?" I knew what was happening in that study, could hear the low murmur of voices through the door. When my father returned alone, his face told me everything. "Mr. Aldrich has declined. He feels the situation isn't suitable." "Because I can't walk," I said flatly. "Elena!" "You can say it, Father. Because I'm crippled, because I'm damaged, because I'm useless." "You are not useless." But his eyes betrayed him. He understood that the world disagreed. The rejections came like clockwork over the next 4 years. Each man had his reasons, his polite excuses. I need a wife who can stand beside me at social functions. How would she even process down the aisle at our wedding? I've heard she can't bear children. What's the point of marriage? That last rumor was particularly cruel. Some doctor had speculated, without ever examining me, that my spinal injury might affect my ability to have children. The rumor spread through Virginia society like wildfire. Suddenly, I wasn't just disabled, I was also barren. The doctors in Philadelphia said my reproductive system is perfectly fine, I protested to my father. The injury doesn't affect. Reputations don't care about facts, he said wearily. By 1855, my father's attempts had become frantic. He approached men from other states, North Carolina, Maryland, Kentucky. He lowered his standards for wealth and social position. He offered increasingly generous dowries. The answer was always no. The 12th rejection came in January 1856 from a man named William Foster. He was 50 years old, portly, twice widowed, with a reputation for drinking too much. My father was offering him $50,000, a third of our estate's annual profits. Foster toured our property, examined the financial arrangements with his lawyer, then finally met me. "Can you sew?" he asked. "No, sir. My hands have limited dexterity." "Can you cook?" "I've never learned. We have kitchen staff." "Can you manage servants?" "I can direct household operations from my chair." He turned to my father with barely concealed disgust. "Colonel, your daughter is charming, but I need a wife who can perform wifely duties. This situation is untenable." After Foster left, I found my father in his study, staring at nothing, a glass of bourbon in his trembling hand. "Father, you can stop," I said quietly. "I don't need 12 proposals, Elalina." His voice was hollow. "I've arranged 12 proposals in 4 years. Every single man has said no, some politely, some brutally, but all with the same message: you're not worth marrying." The words struck like physical blows. "Then I won't marry," I said, trying to sound brave. "I'll stay here. I'll help you manage the estate. I'm 55 years old." He finally looked at me. "I could die tomorrow or live 20 more years, but either way, I'll die eventually. And when I do, what happens to you? Our relatives, your cousin Robert will inherit this estate. Do you think he'll let you stay? He'll sell this place and give you some pittance to live on in a boarding house somewhere, dependent on his charity. Then leave me the estate in your will." "I can't. Virginia law doesn't allow it. Women can't inherit property independently, especially unmarried women, and especially not—" He gestured at my wheelchair again. I felt tears threatening, but I refused to cry. "Then what do you suggest?" He took a long drink of bourbon. "I don't know, but I have to figure something out, because I will not leave you unprotected." That conversation happened in February 1856. 4 weeks later, my father called me to his study and told me about his solution. A solution so shocking, so completely outside every social norm that I was certain I'd misheard him. "I'm giving you to Josiah," he said calmly. "He'll be your husband." I stared at him. "Josiah? The blacksmith?" "Yes." "The enslaved blacksmith?" "Yes." "Father, you cannot be serious." "I'm completely serious." He stood and paced, the way he always did when making difficult decisions. "Elanena, no white man will marry you. That's our reality. But you need protection. You need someone strong enough to carry you, capable enough to manage physical tasks you can't do, loyal enough to care for you when I'm gone." "And you think an enslaved man—" "Josiah is the strongest man on this estate. He's the strongest man on this estate. He's intelligent, healthy, and by all accounts, gentle despite his size. He'll protect you, he'll provide for you, and he won't abandon you because he's bound to you by law." The logic was horrifying and airtight. "Father, this is not how—" "I know it's unconventional. I know society will condemn it. But society has already condemned you, Elanena. 12 men looked at you and decided you weren't worth their time. So I'm done caring what society thinks. I'm arranging protection for my daughter using the resources available to me."
"You're treating me like property," I said, my voice shaking, "giving me to a slave as if I'm furniture." "I'm ensuring you survive." His voice rose, then fell. "I've spent 4 years trying to find you a husband through proper channels. It's failed, so now I'm trying something else." He sat down heavily. "If it makes you feel better, I'll tell you this. I've observed Josiah for years. He's never been violent, never cruel. He reads. Yes, I know he's not supposed to, but I've seen him. He's smart and capable and everything you need in a protector." My mind was reeling. "Have you asked Josiah?" "Not yet. I wanted to tell you first." "And if I refuse?" My father's face aged before my eyes. "Then I'll keep trying to find you a white husband, and we'll both know I'm going to fail. And you'll spend the rest of your life in boarding houses after I die, dependent on relatives who see you as a burden." It was the bleakest possible future, and I couldn't argue with his logic. "Can I meet him first?" I asked, finally. "Actually talk to him?" "Of course. I'll arrange it tomorrow." Part 2. The Man They Called the Brute. That night, I lay in bed trying to imagine my future. Everyone on the estate knew about Josiah. They called him the Brute, not as an insult exactly, but as a simple description of reality. He was enormous, over 7 feet tall, with shoulders like a bull and hands that could bend iron bars. He worked in the blacksmith shop, shaping horseshoes and tools and farm equipment. People were afraid of him. Even other enslaved people gave him wide space. And my father wanted me to marry him.
Tried to imagine living with a man I didn't know, a man society considered property, a man who looked like he could break me in half without effort. But as dawn approached and sleep eluded me, one thought crystallized. If I had to choose between a future dependent on relatives who viewed me as a burden, or a future with a man my father trusted to protect me, maybe the radical solution was the only solution. They brought Josiah to the house the next morning. My first thought was, dear God, he's impossibly large. I was positioned by the window in my wheelchair when I heard heavy footsteps in the hall. My father entered first, followed by a figure that had to actually duck to fit through the doorway. Josiah was at least 7 feet tall, with shoulders that barely cleared the doorframe's width. He weighed 300 pounds, all of it muscle from years of forge work. His hands were enormous, scarred from burns, capable of bending iron. His face was dark and weathered, with a thick beard and eyes that darted nervously around the room, never settling on me. He wore work clothes, rough cotton shirt and pants, both strained by his size. He stood with his hands clasped in front of him, head slightly bowed in the posture of an enslaved person in a white person's house. The nickname was accurate. He looked like he could tear the house apart with his bare hands. "Josiah," my father said, "this is my daughter, Elena." Josiah's eyes flicked to me for half a second, then back to the floor. "Yes, sir." His voice surprised me. It was deep, but soft, almost gentle. "Elena," my father continued, "I've explained the situation to Josiah. He understands that he'll be responsible for your care and protection." I found my voice, though it trembled. "Josiah, do you understand what my father is proposing?" Another quick glance at me, then back down. "Yes, miss. I'm to be your husband, to protect you, to help you. And you've agreed to this." He looked confused, as if the concept of his agreement mattering was foreign. "The colonel said I should, miss." "But do you want to?" The question seemed to startle him. His eyes met mine for the first time, dark brown, surprisingly gentle for such a fearsome face. I don't know what I want, miss. I'm a slave. What I want doesn't usually matter."
The honesty was brutal and fair. My father interceded. "Elena, perhaps you and Josiah should speak privately. I'll be in my study if you need me." He left, closing the door behind him, leaving me alone with a 7-foot enslaved man who was supposedly going to become my husband. Silence stretched between us. "Would you like to sit?" I gestured to the chair across from me. He looked at the chair, a delicate piece with curved legs and embroidered cushions, then at his massive frame. "I don't think that chair would hold me, miss."
The sofa, then. He sat carefully on the edge, which creaked under his weight, but held. Even sitting, he was taller than most standing men. His hands rested on his knees. I couldn't help staring at them. Each finger was thick as a club, scarred and calloused. "Are you afraid of me, miss?" His voice was so quiet. "Should I be?" "No, miss. I would never hurt you. I swear that." "They call you the brute." He flinched. "Yes, miss, because of my size, because I look frightening. But I'm not brutal. I've never hurt anyone, not on purpose." "But you could, if you wanted to." "I could." He met my eyes again. "But I wouldn't. Not you, not anyone who didn't deserve it." There was something in his eyes, a sadness, a resignation, a gentleness that didn't match his appearance. I made a decision. "Josiah, I want to be honest with you. I don't want this any more than you probably do. I don't know you, you don't know me. My father is arranging this because he's desperate, and I'm unmarriageable, and he thinks you're the only solution." I leaned forward slightly. "But if we're going to do this, if we're going to live together, work together, whatever this arrangement becomes, I need to know. Are you dangerous?" "No, miss." "Are you cruel?" "No, miss." "Are you going to hurt me?" "Never, miss. I promise on everything I hold sacred, I will never hurt you." The earnestness in his voice was undeniable. "Then I have another question. Can you read?" The question clearly surprised him. His eyes widened, a flash of fear crossing his face. "Why do you ask?" "Because my father mentioned it. He said he'd seen you reading. Is that true?" Josiah was silent for a long moment. Reading was illegal for enslaved people in Virginia. Admitting literacy was dangerous. Finally, he spoke quietly. "Yes, miss. I can read. I taught myself when I was younger. I know it's not allowed, but I couldn't stop myself. Books are—" He struggled for words. "They're doorways to places I'll never go, to thoughts I'd never have otherwise." "What do you read?" "Whatever I can find, miss. Old newspapers mostly. Sometimes books I borrow from other slaves who found them. I read slowly. I didn't learn properly, but I read." "Have you read Shakespeare?" He looked startled. "Yes, miss. There's an old copy in the library that no one ever touches. I've read it at night when everyone's asleep." "Which plays?" "Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, The Tempest." His voice gained enthusiasm despite himself. "The Tempest is my favorite. The idea of Prospero controlling the island with magic, of Ariel wanting freedom, of Caliban being treated as a monster, but maybe being more human than anyone." He stopped abruptly. "Sorry, miss, I'm talking too much." "No." I was smiling, genuinely smiling for the first time in this bizarre conversation. "Keep talking. Tell me about Caliban." And something extraordinary happened. Josiah, this massive enslaved man called the Brute, began discussing Shakespeare with intelligence and insight that would have impressed university professors. "Caliban is called a monster, but Shakespeare shows us he's been enslaved, his island stolen, his mother's magic dismissed as witchcraft. Prospero calls him savage, but Prospero is the one who came to the island and claimed ownership of everything, including Caliban himself. So who's really the monster?" "You see Caliban as sympathetic," I said. "I see Caliban as human, treated as less than human, but human nonetheless. Like—" He trailed off. "Like enslaved people?" I finished. "Yes, miss."
We talked for 2 hours about Shakespeare, about books, about philosophy and ideas. Josiah's education was self-taught, his knowledge patchy and informal, but his mind was sharp and his hunger for knowledge obvious. And as we talked, my fear began to dissolve. This man wasn't a brute. He was intelligent, gentle, thoughtful, trapped in a body that society looked at and saw only a monster. Finally, as the conversation wound down, I said, "Josiah, if we do this, if we become whatever my father wants us to become, I want you to know something. I don't think you're a brute. I don't think you're a monster. I think you're a person who's been forced into an impossible situation, just like me." His eyes were suddenly wet. "Thank you, miss. Call me Elelena. When we're alone, call me Elelena." "I shouldn't, miss. That wouldn't be proper." "Nothing about this situation is proper. If we're going to be husband and wife, or whatever this arrangement is, you should use my name." He nodded slowly. "Elelena." My name in his deep, gentle voice sounded like music. "Then you should know something too," he said. "I don't think you're unmarriageable. I think the men who rejected you were fools. Any man who can't see past a wheelchair to the person inside doesn't deserve you." It was the kindest thing anyone had said to me in 4 years.
"Will you do this, Josiah? Will you agree to my father's plan?" "Yes." No hesitation. "I'll protect you. I'll care for you. And I'll try to be worthy of you. And I'll try to make this bearable for both of us." We sealed the agreement with a handshake, his enormous hand swallowing mine, warm and surprisingly gentle. My father's radical solution suddenly seemed less impossible. Part 3. Building something unexpected. The arrangement began formally on April 1st, 1856. My father held a small ceremony, not a wedding in the legal sense, since enslaved people couldn't legally marry, and certainly not one that white society would recognize between a white woman and a black man, but he gathered the household staff, read Bible verses, and made an announcement. "Josiah is now responsible for Elena's care and protection. He speaks with my authority regarding her welfare. Treat him with the respect that position deserves." A room was prepared for Josiah adjacent to mine, connected by a door, but separate, maintaining some pretense of propriety. He moved his few belongings from the slave quarters, some clothes, a few books he'd secretly accumulated, tools from the forge. The first weeks were profoundly awkward. We were strangers navigating an impossible situation. I was used to being cared for by female servants. He was used to heavy labor in the forge. Now he was responsible for intimate tasks, helping me dress, carrying me when the wheelchair wouldn't work, assisting with private needs I'd never imagined discussing with a man. But Josiah approached everything with extraordinary gentleness and respect. When he needed to carry me, he would ask permission first. When helping me dress, he would avert his eyes whenever possible. When I needed assistance with private matters, he maintained my dignity even when the situation was inherently undignified. "I know this is uncomfortable," I told him one morning. "I know you didn't choose this." "Neither did you." He was reorganizing my bookshelf. I'd mentioned wanting it in alphabetical order, and he'd taken it upon himself as a project. "But we're making it work, aren't we?" He looked at me, his enormous frame somehow non-threatening as he knelt beside the shelf. "Elena, I've been enslaved my whole life. I've done back-breaking labor in heat that would kill most men. I've been whipped for mistakes, sold away from family, treated like an ox with a voice. This," he gestured around the comfortable room, "living here, caring for someone who treats me like a human being, having access to books and conversation, this is not hardship." "But you're still enslaved." "Yes,
but I'd rather be enslaved here with you than free but alone somewhere else." He returned to the books. "Is that wrong to say?" "I don't think so. I think it's honest." By the end of April, we'd settled into a routine. Mornings, Josiah would help me with preparations, then carry me to the breakfast room. After breakfast, he'd return to the forge. My father still needed his blacksmith, while I worked on household accounts in the library. Afternoons, Josiah would return, and we'd spend time together. Sometimes I'd watch him work in the forge, fascinated by the way he transformed iron into useful objects. Sometimes he'd read to me, his reading improving dramatically with access to my father's library and my tutoring. Evenings, we'd talk about everything, about his childhood on a different plantation, about his mother, who'd been sold away when he was 10, about his dreams of freedom that seemed impossibly distant. And I'd talk about my mother, who died when I was born, about the accident that paralyzed me, about feeling trapped in a body that didn't work and a society that didn't want me. We were two discarded people finding solace in each other's company.
In May, something shifted. I'd been watching Josiah work at the forge, as had become my habit. He was making hinges for the barn door, heating iron until it glowed orange, then hammering it into shape with precise strikes. "Do you think I could try?" I asked suddenly. He looked up, surprised. "Try what?" "The forge work, hammering something." "Elena, it's hot and dangerous." And in May, something shifted. I'd been watching Josiah work at the forge, as had become my habit. He was making hinges for the barn door, heating iron until it glowed orange, then hammering it into shape with precise strikes. "Do you think I could try?" I asked suddenly. He looked up, surprised. "Try what?" "The forge work, hammering something." "Elena, it's hot and dangerous. And I've never done anything physically demanding in my life because everyone assumes I'm too fragile, but maybe with your help." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, let me set it up safely." He positioned my wheelchair close to the anvil, heated a small piece of iron until it was workable, placed it on the anvil, then handed me a lighter hammer. "Hit right there. Don't worry about strength, just feel the metal moving." I swung. The hammer hit the iron with a weak thunk, barely making an impression. "Again, put your shoulders into it." I swung harder, a slightly better hit. The iron bent marginally. "Good, again." I hammered again and again. My arms burned, my shoulders ached, sweat poured down my face. But I was doing physical work, actually shaping metal with my own hands. When the iron cooled, Josiah held up the slightly bent piece. "Your first project." "It's not much," I said. "You made it, with your hands, with strength." I was crying and laughing simultaneously. I made something. "You're stronger than you think," he said quietly. "You've always been strong. You just needed the right activity." From that day forward, I spent hours at the forge. Josiah taught me the basics, how to heat metal, how to hammer, how to shape. I wasn't strong enough for heavy work, but I could make small items, hooks, simple tools, decorative pieces. For the first time in 14 years since my accident, I felt physically capable. My legs didn't work, but my arms and hands did. And in the forge, that was enough. June brought a different revelation. We were in the library one evening. Josiah was reading Keats' poetry aloud, his voice perfect for it, deep and resonant, giving weight to every line. "A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness." "Do you believe that?" I asked. "That beauty is permanent?" "I think beauty in memory is permanent. The thing itself might fade, but the memory of beauty lasts." "What's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen?" He was quiet for a moment. "You.
Yesterday, at the forge, covered in soot, sweating, laughing while you hammered that nail. That was beautiful. My heart skipped. Josiah. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. No. I rolled my wheelchair closer to where he sat. Say it again. You were beautiful. You are beautiful. You've always been beautiful, Elenina. The wheelchair doesn't change that. The legs that don't work don't change that. You're intelligent and kind and brave, and yes, physically beautiful too. The 12 men who rejected me were blind idiots. His voice was fierce now. They saw a wheelchair and stopped looking. They didn't see you. They didn't see the woman who learned Greek just because she could, who reads philosophy for pleasure, who learned to forge iron despite having legs that don't work. They didn't see any of that because they didn't want to see it. I reached out and took his hand, his enormous, scarred hand that could bend iron but held mine like it was made of glass. Do you see me, Josiah? Yes, I see all of you, and you're the most beautiful person I've ever known. I think I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air between us. Dangerous words. Impossible words. A white woman and an enslaved black man in Virginia in 1856. There was no space in society for what I was feeling. Elenina, he said carefully, you can't. We can't. If anyone knew, they'd... What? We're already living together. My father already gave me to you. What's the difference if I love you? The difference is safety. Your safety, my safety. If people think this arrangement is affection rather than obligation.
I don't care what people think. I cupped his face with my hand, had to reach up to do it. I care what I feel, and I feel love. For the first time in my life, I feel like someone sees me, really sees me. Not the wheelchair, not the disability, not the burden. You see Elenina. And I see Josiah, I continued, not the slave, not the brute, the man who reads poetry and makes beautiful things from iron and treats me with more kindness than any free man ever has. If your father knew. My father arranged this. He put us together. Whatever happens is partially his responsibility. I leaned forward. Josiah, I understand if you don't feel the same. I understand this is complicated and dangerous, and maybe I'm just lonely and confused, but I needed to tell you. He was quiet for so long I thought I'd ruined everything. Then, I've loved you since the first real conversation we had, when you asked me about Shakespeare and actually listened to my answer, when you treated me like my thoughts mattered. I've loved you every day since, Elenina. I just never thought I could say it. Say it now. I love you. We kissed. My first kiss at age 22 with a man society said shouldn't exist to me, in a library surrounded by books that would condemn what we were doing. It was perfect. For 5 months, Josiah and I lived in a bubble of stolen happiness. We were careful, never showing affection in public, maintaining the facade of dutiful ward and assigned protector. But in private, we were simply two people in love. My father either didn't notice or chose not to notice. He saw that I was happier, that Josiah was attentive, that the arrangement was working. He asked no questions about the amount of time we spent alone together, the way Josiah looked at me, the way I smiled around him. We built a life together in those 5 months. I continued learning forge work, creating increasingly complex pieces with Josiah's guidance. He continued reading, devouring books from the library, his understanding of literature and philosophy deepening daily. We talked endlessly about everything and nothing, about dreams of a world where we could be together openly, about the impossibility of those dreams, about finding joy in the present despite the uncertain future. And yes, we became intimate. I won't detail what happens between two people in love, but I'll say this. Josiah approached physical intimacy the same way he approached everything with me, with extraordinary gentleness, with concern for my comfort, with reverence that made me feel cherished rather than used. By October, we'd created our own world inside the impossible space society had forced us into. We were happy in ways neither of us had imagined possible. Then, my father discovered the truth. It was December 15th, 1856. Josiah and I were in the library, lost in each other, kissing with the freedom of people who thought they were alone. We didn't hear my father's footsteps, didn't hear the door opening. Elena. His voice was ice. We sprang apart, guilty, caught, terrified. My father stood in the doorway, his face a mixture of shock, anger, and something else I couldn't read. "Father, I can explain." "You're in love with him." Not a question, an accusation. Josiah immediately dropped to his knees. "Sir, please, this is my fault. I should never have—" "Be quiet, Josiah." My father's voice was dangerously calm. He looked at me. "Elena, is this true? Are you in love with this slave?" I could have lied, could have claimed Josiah forced himself on me, that I was a victim. It would have saved me and condemned Josiah to torture and death. I couldn't do it. "Yes, I love him, and he loves me. And before you threaten him, know that this was mutual. I initiated our first kiss. I pursued this relationship. If you're going to punish someone, punish me." My father's face went through a series of expressions: rage, disbelief, confusion. Finally, "Josiah, go to your room now. Don't leave it until I send for you." "Sir." "Now." Josiah left, casting one anguished look back at me. The door closed, leaving me alone with my father. "Do you understand what you've done?" he asked quietly. "I've fallen in love with a good man who treats me with respect and kindness. You've fallen in love with property, with a slave. Elena, if this becomes known, you'll be ruined beyond redemption. They'll say you're mad, defective, perverted. They already say I'm damaged and unmarriageable. What's the difference?" "The difference is protection." His voice rose. "I gave you to Josiah to protect you, not for this." "Then you shouldn't have put us together." I was shouting now too, years of frustration pouring out. "You shouldn't have given me to someone intelligent and kind and gentle if you didn't want me to fall in love with him. I wanted you safe, not scandalous. I am safe, safer than I've ever been. Josiah would die before letting anyone hurt me. And what happens when I die, when the estate passes to your cousin? Do you think Robert will let you keep an enslaved husband? He'll sell Josiah the day I'm buried and install you in some institution. Then free him. Free Josiah. Let us leave. We'll go north. The north isn't some promised land, Elena. A white woman with a black man, former slave or not, will face prejudice everywhere. You think your life is hard now. Try living as an interracial couple." "I don't care." "Well, I do. I'm your father, and I've spent your entire life trying to protect you, and I will not watch you throw yourself into a situation that will destroy you." "Being without Josiah will destroy me." My voice broke. "Don't you understand? For the first time in my life, I'm happy. I'm loved. I'm valued for who I am, rather than what I can't do. And you want to take that away because society says it's wrong?" My father sank into a chair, suddenly looking every one of his 56 years. Silence stretched between us. Finally, he spoke. "What do you want me to do, Elena?" "Bless this. Accept it. I want you to understand that I love him, that he loves me, and that whatever you do, that won't change." More silence. Outside, December wind rattled the windows. Somewhere in the house, Josiah was waiting to learn his fate. "I could sell him," my father said finally. "Send him to the deep south.
Make sure you never see him again." My blood ran cold. "Father, please." "Let me finish." He held up a hand. "I could sell him. That would be the proper solution. Separate you. Pretend this never happened. Find you another arrangement." "Please don't." "But I won't." Hope flickered in my chest. "I won't because I've watched you these past 9 months. I've seen you smile more in 9 months with Josiah than in the previous 14 years. I've seen you become confident, capable, happy, and I've seen how he looks at you like you're the most precious thing in the world. Father, I don't understand this. I don't like it. It goes against everything I was raised to believe. But," he rubbed his face wearily, "but you're right. I put you together. I created this situation, and denying that you'd form a genuine bond was naive. So what are you saying?" "I'm saying I need time to think, to figure out a solution that doesn't end with either of you miserable or destroyed." He stood. "But Elena, you need to understand, if this relationship continues, there's no place for it in Virginia, in the South, maybe not anywhere. Are you prepared for that reality?" "If it means being with Josiah, yes." He nodded slowly. "Then I'll find a way. I don't know what yet, but I'll find a way."
My father spent 2 months deliberating. 2 months during which Josiah and I lived in anxious suspension, waiting for his decision. We continued our routines, forge work, reading, conversations, but everything felt temporary, conditional on whatever solution my father conceived. In late February 1857, he called us both to his study. "I've made my decision," he said without preamble. We sat across from him, me in my wheelchair, Josiah perched on a too small chair, both of us holding hands despite the impropriety. "There's no way to make this work in Virginia or anywhere in the South," my father continued. "Society won't accept it, and laws actively forbid it. If I keep Josiah here, even as your declared protector, suspicions will grow. Eventually, someone will investigate, and you'll both be destroyed." My heart sank. This sounded like prelude to separation. "So," he said, "I'm offering you an alternative." He looked at Josiah. "I'm going to free you, legally, formally, with documents that will stand up in any northern court." Then to me, "Elena, I'm going to give you $50,000, enough to establish a new life. And I'm going to provide letters of introduction to abolitionist contacts in Philadelphia who can help you settle there." I couldn't breathe. You're freeing him?" "Yes." "And letting us go north together?" "Yes." Josiah made a sound, half sob, half laugh. "Sir, I can't." "You can and you will." My father's voice was firm but not unkind. "Josiah, you've protected my daughter better than any white man would have. You've made her happy. You've given her confidence and capability I thought she'd lost forever. In return, I'm giving you your freedom and the woman you love." "Father," I whispered, tears streaming, "thank you." "Don't thank me yet. This won't be easy. Philadelphia has abolitionist communities that will accept you, but you'll still face prejudice. Eleneda, as a white woman married to a black man, yes, married, I'm arranging for a proper legal marriage before you leave, you'll be ostracized by many. You'll struggle financially, socially, maybe physically. Are you certain you want this?" "More certain than I've ever been about anything." "Josiah?" Josiah's voice was thick with emotion. "Sir, I'll spend the rest of my life making sure Elena never regrets this. I'll protect her, provide for her, love her. I swear it." My father nodded. "Then we proceed." The next week was a whirlwind. My father worked with lawyers to prepare Josiah's freedom papers, documents declaring him a free man, no longer property, able to travel without passes or permission. He arranged our marriage through a sympathetic minister in Richmond who performed the ceremony in a small church with only my father and 2 witnesses present.
Josiah and I spoke vows in front of God and law. I became Elena Whitmore Freeman, keeping both names, honoring my father while embracing my new life. Josiah became Josiah Freeman, a free man married to a free woman. We left Virginia on March 15, 1857, in a private carriage my father arranged. Our belongings fit in 2 trunks: clothes, books, tools from the forge, and the freedom papers Josiah carried like sacred objects. My father embraced me before we left. "Write to me," he said. "Let me know you're safe. Let me know you're happy." "I will, Father. I love you." "I love you too, Elena. Now go, build a life, be happy." Josiah shook my father's hand. "Sir, I'll protect her." "Josiah, that's all I ask. With my life, sir." We traveled north through Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware, each mile taking us further from slavery and toward freedom. Josiah kept expecting someone to stop us, to demand his papers, to challenge our marriage, but the papers were solid, and we crossed into Pennsylvania without incident. Philadelphia in 1857 was a bustling city of 300,000 people, including a large free black community in neighborhoods like Mother Bethel. The abolitionist contacts my father provided helped us find housing in a modest apartment in a neighborhood where interracial couples, while unusual, weren't unheard of. Josiah opened a blacksmith shop with money from my father's gift. His reputation grew quickly. He was skilled, reliable, and his immense size meant he could handle work other smiths couldn't. Within a year, Freeman's Forge was one of the busiest in the district. I managed the business side, keeping accounts, dealing with clients, arranging contracts. My education and my mind, which Virginia society deemed worthless, became essential to our success.
We had our first child in November 1858. A boy. We named him Thomas, after my father's middle name. He was healthy and perfect, and watching Josiah hold our son for the first time, this gentle giant cradling a tiny baby with infinite care, I knew we'd made the right choice. 4 more children followed: William in 1860, Margaret in 1863, James in 1865, and Elizabeth in 1868. We raised them in freedom, taught them to be proud of both their heritages, sent them to schools that accepted black children. And my legs? In 1865, Josiah designed an orthopedic device, metal braces that attached to my legs and connected to a support around my waist. With these braces and crutches, I could stand, could walk, awkwardly but genuinely. For the first time since I was 8 years old, I walked. "You gave me so much," I told Josiah that day, standing in our home with tears streaming down my face. "You gave me love and confidence and children, and now you've literally made me walk." "You always walked, Elena," he studied me as I took shaky steps. "I just gave you different tools." My father visited twice, in 1862 and 1869. He met his grandchildren, saw our home, our business, our life. He saw that we were happy, that his radical solution had worked beyond anyone's expectations. He died in 1870, leaving his estate to my cousin Robert, as Virginia law required. But he left me a letter. "My dearest Elena, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I want you to know, giving you to Josiah was the smartest decision I ever made. I thought I was arranging protection. I didn't realize I was arranging love. You were never unmarriageable. Society was too blind to see your worth. Thank God Josiah wasn't. Live well, my daughter. Be happy. You deserve it. Love, Father." Josiah and I lived together in Philadelphia for 38 years. We grew old together, watching our children become adults, welcoming grandchildren, building a legacy from the impossible situation we'd been thrust into.
I died on March 15, 1995, 38 years to the day we'd left Virginia. Pneumonia took me quickly. My last words to Josiah, spoken as he held my hand: "Thank you for seeing me, for loving me, for making me whole." Josiah died the next day, March 16, 1995. The doctor said his heart simply stopped, but our children knew the truth. He couldn't live without me, the way I couldn't have lived without him.
We're buried together in Eden Cemetery in Philadelphia, under a shared headstone that reads, Elena and Josiah Freeman, married 1857, died 1895. Love that defied impossibility. Our 5 children all lived successful lives. Thomas became a physician. William became a lawyer who fought for civil rights. Margaret became a teacher who educated thousands of black children. James became an engineer who designed buildings across Philadelphia. Elizabeth became a writer. In 1920, Elizabeth published a book, My Mother, the Brute, and the Love That Changed Everything. It told our story, the white woman's society called unmarriageable, the enslaved man's society called a brute, and how a desperate father's radical solution created one of the most beautiful love stories of the 19th century. If this story moves you, if you believe love should transcend social barriers, if you believe people are more than society's labels, leave a comment telling us what moved you most. Was it the father's radical decision? Their unexpected love? The fact that they built a successful life despite every obstacle? Subscribe to discover more hidden histories that textbooks ignore. These are the stories of people who defied impossible odds and proved that love, intelligence, and human dignity matter more than social conventions. Your engagement ensures that stories like Elena and Josiah's aren't forgotten, that we remember the complex, beautiful, defiant histories that challenge our assumptions about the past. Hit subscribe, leave your comment, and prepare for more stories that prove love and human dignity can triumph even in the darkest times.